And we're back here for our second episode of the Stripe Sox podcast. In case you missed our first one, well, you missed a little bit, but that's okay. We're here to catch you up. And I'm the White Sox fan, Justin Levy.
So, Tigers fan Jonathan Melma, make sure to check out our first video or podcast where we break down our predictions for the standings and all of the awards.
Which so far, none of mine are looking fantastic. So today, we're, today we're going to go into a little bit of our first series kind of reactions. We're going to start off with a fun segment out here, a little quick pitch called Impressed or Not Impressed. So, Jonathan, I'm opening the floor to you. Who started off by impressing you this weekend?
Some quick hitters on these since I didn't get to watch all of these, but I did get to see bits and pieces. I was really impressed by the Yankees sweeping Houston, and in turn, Houston, I'm really disappointed in you guys for getting swept at home. Like, you guys went out and spent a whole bunch to better your bullpen, and then you kind of just fell apart there with the Yankees. Like, you guys are meant to dominate them. What's up with that? I was also really impressed with the Pirates sweeping Miami at Miami. I was not this high on Pirates, and it is really early in the season, but maybe like you actually need to start paying attention to the Pirates. Maybe they're going to be a force. And then my last team one is going to be the Brewers sweeping the Mets at the Mets. I was not expecting a sweep there. I was expecting, maybe two wins at most for the Brewers, but realistically, I was thinking the Mets were gonna win that series 2-1. So the fact that they were able to sweep the Mets at the Mets, that's also quite impressive. So I'll let you speak a little bit on your impressed stuff.
Some of those that you mentioned actually bleed into mine as well, but I'll touch up on the Astros when we go to our not impressed teams, as I was on the flip side of that. But touching up on the Pirates, you had Jared Jones, absolutely dominant with 10 Ks through five and a third. What a debut for the youngster, 22 years old. I mean, is there a better way to really make your mark? On my other impressed list, we have for the international prospects all coming in. Shota Managa with the Cubs absolutely dominated the Rockies. Going no hitter going to the sixth inning in his MLB debut, almost pretty much unheard of. Yamamoto figured it out against the Cardinals. Pitched a much better game than he did in this whole series against the Padres. And then Young Ho Lee, what else is there to say? Dude's game translated perfectly. He had his first career home run in that second game against the Padres. What a great weekend of baseball, just in general. I mean, opening weekend, nothing is better than that, really.
It really doesn't get much better than that. I do want to point out that Jung Ho Lee is my pick for the Rookie of the Year, and it's looking quite good right now after that impressive showing. Some other players that I want to shout out their impressive starts to the campaign is Esteury Ruiz, who's batting 429 with a double, a triple, and a stolen base.
So it's funny
He
you say
hasn't
him.
played it.
It's funny you say Stewie
Why
Ruiz.
is that?
He got sent down today.
No.
Sent down to the minor leagues. Moment of silence for what was it? Was he second in the MLB last year with steals?
Yeah.
In 400 start the season, one series, and he gets sent down to Las Vegas. He'll play in front of a bigger crowd than he would in Oakland. So I mean, that's good for him.
Oh, for sure he will. I'm shocked by that. What did they say? Why?
Yeah, they brought up Tyler Nevin.
He's batting well. He stole a base. He got a double and a triple. Like, there's not much more you can really ask for, especially out of him. He's not a big home runs guy. It's not like you could be like, oh, he could have had a home run or two.
I mean, the common denominator is on the A's. Do any other
I,
move
I,
make a
I
lot of
get
sense?
that. I get that. That's crazy. For a second, I really did think that you were getting me on April Fool's Day.
No, if I were to get you on April Fool's Day, I'd actually trying to pull a prank out here. I wouldn't be saying facts.
Right. With that news, I'll move on to my other guys who I know have not been sent down, but that is shocking to me. So Juan Soto, of course, he was announced as the player of the week. He hit a home run, the one throw from right field to save the game
Hmm.
or to keep the game tying run from scoring. So that I saw that throw. That was an amazing throw. Props to him. Of course, he got announced as the player of the week, so he's getting all the recognition already. And something that I don't think a lot of people saw was Sunday when I was watching the Phillies game. I think it was the fourth inning. There was a line drive hit towards Alec Boehm just in front of him, and he dove and came up with it. I didn't think it was a play like a ball he could get, and he came up with it. So want to give a shout out to him there on that diving catch.
Yeah,
So
bro. I
any players that impressed you?
mean, pretty much everyone I already kind of mentioned there. I do kind of want to shout out not necessarily players, but teams with their offenses. We had the Diamondbacks offense. I get it. It's the Rockies. It's supposed to be a rocky season for them. No pun intended. But I mean, their offense put double digits in 2 out of the 4 games. They put up double digits. And then the O's too put up two out of those 3 games. The two that they won, more double digits. I mean, these teams are young, homegrown talent too. I mean, more O's than they are the Diamondbacks, as they've actually with their trades of Lourdes Gurriel, who's been amazing, great resign, great job keeping him around. Plus trading for Eugenio Suarez adds great bat speed. Those teams in general, high-powered offenses.
You have both ends of the spectrum. You have signing guys like the Dodgers, and you have developing guys like the Orioles. So yeah, it's a balancing act, really. You gotta just determine who you want to sign, who you want to keep around, who you want to let go. So, but I love to see it.
On the flip side, what didn't impress you? Who didn't impress you this weekend?
I have a lot more to talk about over here. So, well, not as many points, but we have more in depth over here. Houston, I already touched on them. I know you're going to touch on them in a minute. So I won't say anything more than they just blew it against the Yankees. You should not be getting swept at home. The Phillies, the few games I watched of them, they were not playing their best ball. I get that they're playing the Braves, and the Braves are a really good team, but I was really disappointed just watching some of the games for them. They did end up coming back to win Sunday, which I saw before they came back and won. But both Friday and Saturday, when I was watching their games, it was quite ugly a lot of time. I don't think very many people would argue that fact. So it's early in the season, they're playing one of the best teams in the league. So I hope that Philly is able to figure things out a little bit more in this next series and the rest of the season. It's early, way too early to overreact to this stuff. But and then the other big thing is the Mets and how they handled the Reese Hoskins thing. I don't think there was a ton of ill will, if any, with that slide. But even if there is, the overreaction from everybody and then deciding to throw at him and the manager coming out being like, oh, well, the guy that we had throwing, he has really bad command issues. So that's why it went behind his head. If you're going to send a guy out there to throw at somebody, which you're throwing at their lower half most of the time, you should probably send out somebody who has good command so you don't accidentally hit somebody in the head, especially at the speeds that guys throw now. Like those things, it can be very dangerous to throw high at somebody at those speeds. So just the fact that you're doing that was a big disappointment for me this weekend.
Is I wanted to touch back on the Astros. I know the Yankees is impressed. You touched on them being unimpressed. That bullpen, I don't know what they did. They put in 5 years investment into Josh Hader. You had a nice foundation with Montero and Presley last year to close out games. In 3 out of the 4 games, they had a lead going into the 6th inning or later, and their bullpen lost it for them. Like I don't like the Astros are supposed to dominate pretty much everybody. They're the favorite out of the West. They're the favorite in the American League, and you get swept at home. I mean, granted, you haven't won a game at home since October of last year. Which, I mean, that is due to postseason. But the only other team that you really have a worse record than at home, and since the end of pretty much last regular season, is the White Sox, and that's definitely not a list you want to be a part of. So the Astros, again, their bullpen disappointing. You need to figure something out if you're a World Series contender. I get it. New management. Joe Espada is not Dusty Baker, but but it's early growing pains. You got the Yankees. If you put your investment in the bullpen, your bullpen's got to show up and close out these games. That's number one. Not impressive. Also, we were talking about with the Mets and the Brewers. There's kind of tempers between these players. And that was a full-on brawl. I think it cleared once. Obviously, now you got the pitcher suspended for 3 games. Carlos Mendoza already served his 1 game suspension. Why are players already getting suspended 2 games in? And plus, I mean, you had Genesis Cabrera now out for 3 games for Toronto, suspended for 3 games during another brawl between them and the Rays. Come on. It's early. You shouldn't be having these tempers quite yet. There's no fight. There's no reason for fighting it yet. It's been a disappointment. Granted, it's funny watching bullpen guys run out of the bullpen and flip their way out, but still, it's a disappointment. And then my third one really, it's just kind of it's more new rule change. I don't necessarily like the 18 seconds with runners on base for a pitcher. The 20-second one I think was a good number. It didn't really the 2 seconds, I get it, it doesn't change much. But in terms of the psychological sense, like you need to take a breath if you let up a hit. I know if I was a pitcher, I would want to take a step off, take a breath, then get the signs relayed to me. But now, 2 seconds. It may not seem super significant, but it's really important. But you just need to breathe. And these pitchers don't get a chance to breathe. I feel like especially if you're rushed, that could lead to more arm injuries. And that's kind of a problem because you need to reset, you need to take a breath, and you need to make sure that your motion, because I will say some of these pitchers' motions they're funky, but they're violent too. And that can do a lot more. And you need that time to just really relax, take that stress off, just a couple seconds. 2 seconds, I would say, or pace the play that much for just 2 seconds.
Yeah, and I think that's something that MLB will probably look at. I get it's early in the year, so it won't be till next off season. But I imagine if there is significant pushback or injuries, they will look to revert it because it's only a 1 year change right now. They're like testing it or whatever. Also, I do want, if you are done with your disappointment, I do want to add two more to the impressive.
All
The
right.
first one being Mike Trout on Monday, 2 home run game. So just want to shout that one out. Mike Trout having a 2 home run game. It's good to see him doing that. Oh, and his first at bat of the season also was a home run against the O's. So he's starting his campaign off pretty well. And then lastly, Oakland fans, specifically the ones in the parking lot. They had between 20 and 30,000 fans protesting in the parking lot during opening day, telling John Fisher to sell the team as he should. And that's just great. That's impressive that that many were there. I think only 2,500 or something like that went in and actually were at the game for opening day, which is their all-time lowest opening day total. So just the fact that the Oakland fans are able to not go, like they're able to control themselves not to go into the game and to sit out in the parking lot and protest for that, it really shows a lot of commitment. And I'm with you guys. Like there needs to be resolve in Oakland,
And I'm
and
also
it needs to be a team there.
yes, I also have I actually have a staggering number that I found. There was the announced attendance for the 3 games combined was just over 22,000.
That's insane. I know my cousin was at the game Sunday, and he said there maybe was 2,000 people there. Maybe. And he couldn't understand it. He doesn't follow baseball and everything around it as closely as we do. So I had to explain that to him, but he couldn't understand why a team wasn't drawing that many fans. And that would be why. That mixed with poor on-field product the last few years, just because you guys like they don't want to sign anybody and keep anybody around, really. What do you really expect? So,
Say that's
you got anything to add?
I think we nailed everything pretty much. We're gonna make a call to the pen because we were talking about a fantastic team who constantly is in the news. And as we mentioned it, making that call to the pen, it's gonna be the Oakland Athletics, or should we say Vegas Athletics, or Vegas who? As Oakland, as we know, in the most recent days, have a pitch, one last stand to the MLB and John Fisher to keep the Oakland A's.
So the exact pitch that they've given MLB and the A's, which this got leaked, I believe Sunday, what is a 5-year lease with an opt out after 3 years, And the reason why it's 5 years is if the Vegas ballpark is not finished in time, it allows additional years for the A's to play in Oakland. I think that's very sensible and honestly very nice of the city of Oakland to offer, because they could only offer the three and be like, you got to get out then. It's a $97 million extension fee.
Flat rate. Even if they opt out after 3, they still have to pay the 97.
Oh, I did not see that part of it. So even better, or even better for Oakland, I should say, not necessarily for the A's. It would require John Fisher and the A's organization to sell back their 50% ownership of the Coliseum site, which they purchased a few years ago, and it finally went through this past year to establish control of the site as a way to keep them in Oakland was their reasoning, and clearly that is not the case. So they'll be selling that back with this, and then MLB and the A's must, or the A's ownership group must agree to one of the three other parameters, which is either Oakland has a 1 year to find an owner for an expansion team, and they will be granted an expansion team, or they get to keep the name, colors, and history of the Oakland A's for when they get an expansion team, or they will facilitate a sale of the team to another ownership group to keep them in Oakland, and then John Fisher would get an expansion team in Vegas, which personally, out of all of those, that is the one that I am hoping for, because I think honestly it makes the most sense. Just give the expansion team to Vegas. I think Vegas would be much happier with it. Many people, including Bryce Harper, who's from Vegas, have said they would much prefer an expansion team. So I think it's a win-win for everybody in that case.
I mean, that makes financial sense. It makes sense for both franchises. Makes sense for two potential franchises because the MLB's already been talking about expansion. Nobody really knows besides to Vegas. There's obviously speculation that it could be Portland, it could be Charlotte, it could be Nashville, it could be Orlando. We've seen different pitches and leaks about potential ballparks out, especially in Orlando. But I mean, there's no reason why you can't keep the A's in Oakland while also finding another way to get to Vegas. And that is the one. Or honestly, if they're really going to be that stubborn, I'd rather just keep the name and colors in Oakland, keep the trademark in Oakland, because then you can at least let the, even if you don't have the history, then they can at least be the new team. They don't have to be
Right.
the Vegas A's and carry on the history to start all the way in Philadelphia. Because I mean, do people, I mean, Philadelphia, they treasure the Phillies in their history,
Right.
but not necessarily the A's history as much. But that's all with Oakland. And Vegas doesn't necessarily, I guess, have that yet, where they can get the history because they're not necessarily the fans that have been around always for baseball. That's been Oakland for all these years. You got the titles with Oakland. So I mean, there's no reason why BAs should not keep Oakland, should not be a staple of Oakland.
Exactly. And I think the other benefit really for John Fisher and the MLB of keeping the current A's team in Oakland would be that if the Vegas ballpark is not done in time, that's okay. Just delay the expansion a year or two, versus having to find somewhere for them to play. Of course, as soon as Oakland's granted the expansion team or gets to keep the A's, they're going to start development most likely on the Howard Terminal Park. But on any ballpark, it could be at the Coliseum site, it could be there, it could be somewhere else. But you're going to have that new stadium. You're going to have the Vegas stadium, but it allows Vegas to figure out and the state of Nevada to figure out their whole money thing with the schools over stadium lawsuit and any delays in construction, which typically happen. We've seen that in other MLB parks already. And so it's just a win-win for everybody in my eyes.
But I mean, we'll see. We'll see what the vote is on Tuesday. So when this episode probably comes out, there will be a decision. Or so we will see in next week as kind of a reaction. Is we are going to take one last call to the pen, bring in the closer here for today's episode. We now enter the ninth inning. We bring in our closer, which is always going to be our question of the day. Jonathan, what do you have coming up today?
The question of the day today, which you guys can give us in the comments on our socials, which are linked down below, or on the YouTube comments. But today is, what is the most random player or players that you guys like? Start
Does
us
it have to be
off.
current players, or does it have to be, or can it be in MLB history?
I think I would do at least one current one, but I would love to hear some of your in MLB histories too.
All right, so current player who I don't know why I just love watching him play is most definitely Pete Alonso. He's actually one of my favorite players, if not my
Mhm.
favorite player, not on the White Sox. Just hits tanks, doesn't give an F about anything. What's not to love about that? He plays solid first base for the Mets. Great nickname, Polar Bear. He's my favorite one just to watch. And I'm gonna give you a surprising one. My other favorite player I loved watching growing up was Kosuke Fukudome. I see some stuff.
That is a deep pull. That is
Yes,
a deep pull.
he was my favorite player, if not still is my favorite player ever. I love Kosuke Fukudome. I looked up his stats, fairly average hitter, one-time All-Star, like nothing super flashy. I don't know. I loved Kosuke Fukudome. He was my favorite player. But then he went to the White Sox, made me a lot happier. Maybe not his best years, but he's on the White Sox at some point, so that made me happy. Yeah, that's a there's my favorite player of all time.
That was definitely not somebody I was thinking remotely you would be saying. So that really caught me off guard.
It's gonna be a win. I'm gonna put on a scoreboard
Yeah.
that says
Oh yeah.
players I win, and players I surprise the or who has the most surprising player.
Okay. My surprising player, who is current, is a Buck Farmer of the Cincinnati Reds. So he is a former Tigers player. I absolutely loved him when he was coming up in the minor leagues. And actually, my first or second Tigers game, it was one of the two. I think it was my second Tigers game, was his MLB debut. And I think I was at the Tigers for my birthday. So that was really special for me. But I've always liked him, just followed him around wherever he's gone. Really random player. Basically, no one knows who he is, but absolutely love him. So I also like Nick Castellanos, but that really isn't like, anything absurd. But I liked him on the Tigers and everything. And then my favorite player, I don't think he's technically retired yet, but I don't believe he has signed with anybody. Evan Longoria.
All right. He got his ring the other day in Arizona.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I think he threw out the first
That's
pitch with the
cool.
family and got his NL champs ring.
Okay. That's really cool. So I'm guessing he is retired then. I just don't think he's made it official yet. But yeah, I was rooting for the Diamondbacks a whole bunch during the playoffs because I really wanted him to get his ring finally. Just how many iconic moments does this guy have? He was Mr. Clutch down in Tampa.
Saving a reporter's life.
Oh, saving the reporter's life. Yeah. Saving the reporter's life, hitting clutch home runs, all of that. So just that, and I have the nostalgia of playing MLB 2K12 and
Oh,
playing against him a whole bunch. And that's just somebody really random I like. And one that is actually retired. I also like, which is going to be weird again. You listed one of your rivals. I'm about to list one of my rivals, Nick Swisher,
okay.
who is a former Yankee. Like him for basically no reason, you know? Like
So crazy enough, there was actually news as you were saying Castellanos, like he just got traded to the A's.
there is no way he got traded to the what would they even give up?
They got a Stewie Ruiz. Now I'm playing as April Fools.
So in your hypothetical, they send down a Surrey to call up a guy to then trade a Surrey for Nick Costia for a below average fielder, above average bat.
Hey, April Fools.
That would be an interesting trade, but I don't know. I don't see the A's making a move like that. It's too good of a deal back for them, you know? And the other thing is it would put their payroll too high. If we're being real honest, wouldn't be able to afford it. It's like that scene in Moneyball where it's like, you can't afford him, Billy.
We'll get five of him, five
Come
players
on.
that equal him.
Exactly. Because what does he do?
It's tanks.
He gets on base.
Yes.
Oh yeah, Nick hits tank. Everyone else gets on base. So yeah, but Nick Swisher basically just comes down to another. I remember playing against him and stuff in the old 2K games. So it's just a memorable name. I actually set my batting stance to that in MLB The Show
Just
because I
low
do have a
like this.
not the I take away the barrel wag, but the a little bit lower stance. It happens to line up very similar to my stance. Actually, my exact stance is basically perfectly mirroring Miguel Cabrera's, but that's because that was my favorite player growing up as a Tigers fan. Kind of hard not to love him,
And I was told
but
I looked like a righty Schwarber, so
a little bit.
that was even my stance. But yeah, no, I was told my batting stance was a righty Schwarber. But we're gonna get into that another time, as this has been second edition of the Striped Stocks podcast. As Jonathan looks like you have one more
I
last thing.
do I do want to give out a real quick shout out to another really, really random Tiger, and then we can end this. Don Kelly.
Okay,
That's all I'm gonna say.
okay,
All I'm gonna say.
good pull,
Okay. Anyway,
good pull. I still
yeah,
think I get the weirdest pull of the game of the day,
I
most
I
deepest
think you
pull. That's going up on the
I
scoreboard.
think you do.
It has been
Yeah.
a
Well,
fun.
I think for current player, I think I win
Yeah,
that point. So I think we're tied.
yeah. Okay.
So
We're tied for that, but we're going for deepest pull in general.
Divas full in general, you have it. But
Yeah. One
yeah.
nothing. Let's go. Already more wins than the White Sox had this entire weekend. All right. Well, that's going to be it for the Stripe Sox podcast. Again, this has been your White Sox host, Justin Levy.
And your Tigers host, Jonathan Melma. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.